So hello and welcome to this lesson here on objects and classes. Now Swift is known as an object-oriented language. Prior to Swift, you used to build apps with a language called Objective-C, and that was an object-oriented version of the C language. So you can understand that to understand an object is quite a fundamental part of Swift. The good news is though, it's quite or reasonably straightforward. In fact, we can use a broader version of our password example by looking at a view attributed of a staff member. Therefore, the class becomes the general description of the staff member, and the object is a particular instance or example of it. Did you get that? Well, don't worry. Let's have a look. So we're going to create our class here, and as you can see, classes here start, or when you name a class, it's with a capital letter. So a variable, as mentioned, it's a lowercase letter. The classes are always an uppercase letter. Now what we can do in this class now called staff is we can add variables and functions to it. So for example, let's put a variable, is the staff member active? As in, are they a current member of staff? We can use a boolean for that. And we can set that to true. And we can also, well, let's just create a passcode as we have been doing, shall we? Makes things easier. And let's just set that to an integer of 100. So that now creates a class of staff, and it's just got two variables in at the moment, if they're active and their passcode. So outside of that, we can now create a new staff member. So let's do that. So let's make it easy. So let's create a variable called staff, and we're going to set that to the capital S, so it's the staff class. And you're going to need some of those curly brackets around it like that. And then what we can do, we can then just do a simple print option here. So we can print, and then this is staff member if they are active or not. So let's just do that. You can see it's running the playground up here, look. So it might just take a few seconds. But hopefully you can see what's happening here though. So we've created this class here called staff. We've set a couple of variables, so the default value is active is true, and the passcode is 100. We've now created our member of staff and set it to that class staff, and we'll just print into C now if our staff member called staff is active. So it should return a true value when that playground finishes running. So after quite a while there, the playground finally run and compiled, and it's given us the true value which was expecting here at the bottom. We can also do other things, so we can actually update things like the passcode. So let's do that, staff.passcode, and we can set that now to 1234, a nice default passcode. And let's just now print that, staff.passcode. We'll stop it running and see if it runs quicker this time. And it has there, look, brilliant. So now it's set to 1234. So our class was set to true, as in an active employee, and the passcode is 100. We've now created our staff member, and we haven't changed that, so they are active, but we have changed the passcode, and it has reflected that down here, which is excellent. So hopefully you can start to see why classes really are such good things. We can create classes for types of things like staff members, or it could be a game character or something like that. And then we can create objects to customize our staff members or game characters as they sort of come and go. We can also create a method in our class that runs a block of code. Now you may be familiar with the term method, you may not. Really, a method is the same as a function. So a function runs, it executes a block of code. But when it's inside a class, we call that function a method. Having said that, we still write func there, which is obviously short for function, to show it is that. So we're going to write a function here, and I'm going to say this guy can get sacked. So I'm going to put fired. He's got fired from his job. And I can create a bit more code now. Here, and we can say, or change that is active part. So not a current staff member, we can change that boolean to false. And then down here, we can then call that function, so we can run it. So staff.fired, and then I'm going to print then the same as before, is the staff member active. So let's just stop that and then run it all again and see what we get here. So we should get true 1, 2, 3, 4 as we did before, because we haven't changed any of the code, and now we've got false because we've created a function in our class here, which then really makes the employee no longer an employee. They've been fired, so they are now inactive. And so we ran that code, and then we printed the update. So is it still active? And now no, because that code up here is run the function, the method, then it's now false. We can also run or create functions that return a value. Now to do that, it's func, and let's just say default passcode. And then to return a value, it is simply the hyphen and then the greater than symbol. And I want to return a bool value. And some curly braces for our function. So whatever code we're adding here, we've created a function called default passcode, and that's going to run a block of code that's going to return a value, either true or false. So let's do that. Let's say if passcode is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, then what we want to do is we want to return true. Now if it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, we want to, I'm not sure why it created those brackets there, we want to return a false value. So we can see here this function here, it's within that class called staff. There's a function called default passcode. It's going to return a boolean value, true or false. So we're saying if the passcode is 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm now saying that 1, 2, 3, 4 is the default passcode. It's one that you get when you first become a staff member, and then log in and you've got to change it straight away. Return true, and else return false. So again, we can now run that code down here. So I've got to just call that. So it's staff.default passcode, run that, and then we want to run, oh sorry, print then, don't we, if that's what that staff's passcode, staff.passcode. So let's stop that and run it again and see what we get this time. And yes, that passcode is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's run that function up here. So we've actually set it, haven't we, earlier on to 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this function is saying, look, the default passcode is 1, 2, 3, 4. So if the passcode is 1, 2, 3, 4, return true, as in yes, that is the default passcode. Else return false. So we've run that down here, and now we've just printed the staff passcode again, 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, we could actually print the function itself, default passcode. And we'll see if that one works here, and that should then return a true value. So it does there, yeah. So I've just really basically printed staff passcode again there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're printing the result of that function we ran, and it's saying yes, true, the default passcode was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it might look like we can probably achieve a lot of that code easier without creating a class, and of course at this scale, then yes, that's probably true actually. But as this code scales up, then classes really come into their own, they really do work. Imagine having one staff member here, well that's easy. Now imagine having 1,000 staff members or 10,000 staff members. And they're also handy true if you're writing big programs or big applications, or you've got several developers working on the same application. By using classes, it just makes things a lot easier and clearer when using this type of structure. So if somebody else comes along, they can see a created class, and they can see how you then extracted that and use those as objects. So hopefully that explains classes and objects quite well. So now it's time for your challenge.